There's a lot of great things we could be doing besides here, but I think the reason you came because you thought, there is hope for my family, there is hope for my life, there is hope that if I can implement some of these things that this silly, crazy guy gets up on Sunday morning and starts talking, if I could just implement some of the words of God, then there's going to be change that's going to take place. So today's word, the word of the day, the thing that there is hope for in your family, the word that you're going to take out of these doors and you're going to be able to implement today, and it's going to actually change who you are. Are you ready? No drum roll or anything. It's forgiveness. See, I've heard that word before. As a matter of fact, I've tried to forgive people before and it just didn't work. And so I just pick and choose who I forgive. And it's been working for me so long. And that's, so, boom, all of a sudden here's this wall again. We just talked about this. I want you to have an open heart for change. When you say, or when I say the word forgiveness, automatically there is somebody that pops into your head, right? You can see a picture of their face start to form. You can see the length of their hair, either long or none. And you can just start to feel your whole body, inside start to close down just a little bit. And your hands start to close and grip, or you start to get a little sweaty in your palms, When you just hear the word forgiveness, there is somebody, there is a person in your mind right now. And if that's the case, then you are in the right place this morning. Because when you leave here today, I hope and I pray that God works in your life and you can look at that picture that you have in your mind of that person just a little bit differently today. I'd like to say for the sake of that person, and yes, it would be good for them if you forgave them. But more than that today, God cares about you. And He wants it to be easier on your life. He wants you to implement this practice of forgiveness into your life so that your life will just be better. It'll be more joyful. It'll just be happier and easier to get along with people. In Mark chapter 11, verse 25, we're going to read through a few scriptures. We're going to set just a base of how God feels about forgiveness. It says, whenever you stand praying, forgive if you have anything against anyone, so that your Father who is in heaven will also forgive your transgressions. So your Father in heaven will also forgive if you forgive. Forgive, in Luke chapter 6, verse 37, it states, forgive and you will be forgiven. I see a trend. I see a trend happening here, don't you? The last one, it's Matthew chapter 6, verse 12. Forgive us of our debts as we also forgive our debtors. It seems like to me, now I can't make this statement for sure, but I'm pretty, just after reading those, I can kind of come to a conclusion. God might be monitoring this a little bit. This might be an area, this might be a word that we don't think about it very often, and sometimes we say it, but we don't mean it all the time. But this is a big word to God. Because He's saying, just in these scriptures alone, these three that we read this morning, if you're willing to forgive, then I'm willing to forgive you. If you're willing to forgive, then I'm willing to forgive you. If you are willing to forgive debts, then I'm willing to forgive it as well. And so somehow, some way, we see that our God in heaven is actually monitoring whether or not we are forgiving people or we're not forgiving them. There is a lot of reasons in our life why we should hold these grudges and bitterness and disappointments and these things that people have done against us. There's 100 reasons why we can justify and know in our minds that it's okay for us to act like we do. But when it comes to the Word of God, and you start to read it and you start to look in it, all of a sudden we start to feel some conviction come over us and realize maybe the attitude that we have towards other people is just flat out wrong. Just wrong. I mean, we want to be right, so that's the reason that we discuss it with other people. Can you believe how this person offended me and what they did against me? And what we want is this. It's very simple. We want people to side with us. And when people side with us and they say that what you feel is okay, it's fine to feel that way. If you've been wronged and this has been done against you, then you should be, that's a normal feeling. Okay, I've got two. You know, the Bible says we're three or more gathered together. If I could just get just one more to agree with me, then I don't know that the Lord is going to be in the middle of all that, but I sure would feel good about it. So we go to the next person and we say, can you believe what they have done? I mean, they have offended me in such a way, all of these things, and it's wrong, isn't it? And they say, yeah, you're exactly right. You should be mad at them. You should hold a grudge against them. They should never, ever be allowed to, and we just go through all of the things. If you feel that way today about your boss, if you feel that way today about your job, if you feel that way today about your spouse, if you feel that way today about your friends, if you feel that way today about your parents, if you feel that way today about somebody, then let's find forgiveness in our own life. God is telling us today that this is crucial. It's a crucial moment in our lives. Because if we don't find ourselves forgiving, do you know what the alternative is today? Anybody know? Anybody wonder? We feel pretty secure. I am secure in my salvation. I know that I love God beyond a shadow of a doubt. I've asked Him into my heart. I've said many, many prayers that would make me feel like that salvation is mine. But how I read it, if you have a heart of unforgiveness, it would be something that would disqualify you from Him forgiving you. Not something He would choose for you, because you can never, ever be pulled from the hand of God. Maybe, just maybe, something that you could choose for yourself. Let's read what forgiveness is. It says, forgiveness is a decision to release a person from an obligation that results when injury occurs. So it's for you to release them from an obligation, from when they offended you, from when they hurt you, when they did you wrong. You personally are saying to them, I release you from this action. Okay, so here's what happens. I go up. Let's see. Who's the lucky person today? Kyle, you're the lucky person. Don't ever make eye contact with the pastor. If he starts to walk off the stage and he starts talking like that, put your eyes down. Just start, and if you get really, really nervous, you might need to go to the bathroom. Just stand up and try to beat him out of the sanctuary. Okay, so here's what happens. Kyle and I, we're pretty good friends. We know each other pretty well. You like what? Airplanes, pretty girls. I know a little bit about it, not much. Sisters that run out of gas on the highway. This guy came to his sister's rescue the other day and gave her some gas on Highway 9. It was so sweet of him to do so. I was really impressed by him. Okay, so here's what happens. We're in the foyer, okay? And I walk in, and for whatever reason today, I'm in a bad mood. That happens usually 3, 4, 5 days a week. And so I walk into the lobby area, and you are in there, and you have toasted your bagel already, right? Do you like everything bagels? Is that what? It doesn't matter what kind of, as long as it's toasted. So he toasts the bagel. He finds the cream cheese, and you're spreading the cream cheese on your bagel. It's a ritual every Sunday morning. It's on the bagel. Spread out smoothly. It's a delicious bagel fixing to be consumed by Kyle. And for whatever reason, I come up and I take the bagel out of your hands and I just slam it in your face. All right? That's not nice at all. But I just, for whatever reason, I'm in a bad mood today. I need to take it out on somebody. Today I choose Kyle. You know, nothing against the bagel, whatever, but today is not my day and it's not going to be your day either. Kyle has two choices today. Two choices and two choices only. He has a choice to forgive me. And Chad had a bad day. I know it was the 5th day, and, you know, 5th days are always bad for him of the week. And so, you know, whatever day it is. And so, you know, it's like, so you can forgive me. You can say, you know, I'm going to forgive you for what you've done. You were having a bad day. You shouldn't have done it, but I'm going to forgive you for it. And he can go on with his life. He can go get another bagel. He can put cream cheese. He can try to avoid me. You know? Just not put himself in that risk area again. Or Kyle can do this. Second thing Kyle can do. Kyle can say, do you know what he did to me? Do you know? He probably does that to other people too. He probably takes people's bagels all the time and throws them in their face. You know? And we get to this point and then we just start building it and building it and building it. Before you know it, Kyle don't want to hang around me. He don't want to talk to me. Matter of fact, Kyle's going to find another bagel-loving church that he can attend. Because if that's how he's going to be treated here, then he's gone. Well, here's the only problem. Kyle takes his bagels and his life and everything else and leaves. But the bitterness is still here. I know a silly example, right? But just implement life into that, because we have friends, we have marriages, we have children. Some things, sometimes it's just as little as something like a bagel, but then other times it's big things, you know. But we find ourselves just avoiding and running away from the situation, and we find ourselves not forgiving. What do we do when there's conflict in our lives that's better than running? Because we're good at running. We're really good at running because running is easier. Running is so much easier. So Matthew chapter 18, Jesus begins to talk about conflict resolution. The best thing for Kyle to do is come up and just say, hey, listen, I don't know what was going on, you know, the other day, but you came up and you did something to me that hurt. It tasted good when I licked it off my face, but it hurt when you smeared it on there. And I have this decision to make myself. I can say, you know, I'm sorry for what I did to you, or I can say, hey, you deserved it. So that's what you get. So Jesus says first to go. And then he says the second thing you should do is that you should go and that you should take somebody with you. Friend, a neighbor, just somebody. And so Kyle would come to me and he would bring somebody as a witness and somebody that would help. And he could say, hey, I wanted to talk to you one more time about this situation because this really is bothering me. And I brought this friend to help us out. And we talk about that. And if I say, you know, I still think that you just deserved what you got. I mean, you're better looking than me, all of this, you know, and you deserved for a while to feel just a little different than you feel right now. And that's what you get. I walk away. Third thing Jesus says to do. He says that you find an elder of the church, somebody that's well respected among the church, a pastor, somebody inside the church. And you take them back again to that person. Man, this is getting old. In the past, you know, I just said, hey, it's not worth it. Hey, if that's how they want to treat people, let them treat them, but I just don't have anything to do with their life anymore. There must be some type of value that Jesus sees in this. That he doesn't dismiss people so much. Because he has a method to his madness, you know? So then he says, bring that elder back and let that elder talk and to pressure them. That's what the New King James Version, it uses that word. It tells them to tell them what is right in God's eyes. And if you can't convince me of that in that time, then just brush it off and walk away. But here's what happens. In all of that, Kyle is the one that walks away whole. No longer does he have to have bitterness. No longer does he have to have some type of confusion in his life. No longer is that his responsibility. He's fulfilled everything that God has asked of him, and he can walk away a man of God. But until he does that, he's not went through the right conflict resolution that the Bible has asked him to do. I was talking to a pastor friend of mine, and I kind of hesitate to even say pastor friend, and he is, but it kind of shocked me. I needed something pretty bad back a few weeks ago, and he had what I needed. And it wasn't like, I needed $1,000, or it wasn't any skin off his back. Is that the right saying? Skin off your nose, hair off your back. I don't know. I can't remember. Anyway, I didn't really need it. I mean, I needed it, but it wasn't anything to him. And so I called him up and I said, hey, I need this from you. And the phone conversation kind of went like this. I don't think so. And I thought, oh, yeah. All right, yeah, whatever. So, how you doing? Doing pretty good, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And, so you think I'll be able to, hook me up with this? And no, I don't think so. I thought, is this dude joking or is he serious? Because I cannot figure it out. And so we end the conversation, and then the thing that I needed, which wasn't really a big deal, I thought, he wasn't going to let me use. And I thought, are you serious? I had been in ministry with this guy for about 17 years. Just acquaintances, Done a lot of stuff with him and for him, and thought our friendship was valuable. I mean, I don't know. And he's like, So I get in my car and I drive, and I'm thinking, okay, I misunderstood this. Surely I misunderstood. But I'm telling you what happens is inside myself, I start boiling a little bit. I thought, how dare him? I mean, really, if he was to ask me, I'd give it to him. It's his. He can have it right now. So I called a buddy of mine. I told him, or talked to him, and I said, can you believe he did this? Yeah. So this buddy agreed, and I had another buddy, and they agreed. And what he did, we thought was wrong. And so I had an appointment. I had to drive about an hour and a half, so I start driving. The more I drive, the madder I get. Start dwelling on it over and over and over, and more and more and more. Before, too long, an hour and a half into this drive, I'm ready to kill the guy. I mean, really, after all that time of investment and friendship and all that, and you treat me like that. So I start the conflict resolution part. I contact him. I said, did you mean this? Or, is there some other reason? And he said, well, yeah, at first I meant it. But then as I started thinking about it, it might have been the wrong choice at the time to do that. He goes, I thought that you didn't want to be a part of the organization that we were a part of for so long. And so if you didn't want to be a part of us, then we don't want to have anything to do with you. I just thought, well, two Christian men, we should be able to get along. We should be able to do anything together. Two people should be able to get along and do anything together. If we're not holding grudges and we're not, all of that stuff, we should be able to do anything with anybody at any time. Really. And I said, well, I'm sorry that you feel like that I don't want to have anything to do with you, but that's not the case. I value our friendship. Always have. And somebody has told you something about me or whatever that maybe it was wrong, because I've never felt the way you described this situation, this relationship. I've never felt that way towards you. And you choose not to have a friendship with me now or let us engage in conversation because you hold what? You hold a grudge against me. Two pastors talking together, and here we are trying to figure out this conflict resolution thing that we're going back and forth. My point is this. If two men of God are in that position where they're trying to figure out, then it can happen to anybody. It can happen to all of us because we're all equal in the sight of God. Not that two men of God are higher or lower or anything like that. I'm just trying to say that it happens to those men, and you would think if anybody could do it, they should be able to. And we did. We worked it out. But how many years has it taken? I didn't even know that there was bitterness. I didn't even know that there was disappointment. I'm telling you right now, if there's people in your life that you've pictured, maybe today is a good day to start trying to work those things out. Being passive about it is really not going to work for you. Not ever contacting, not ever talking to, not ever trying to deal with it. It's not going to work for you. And here's the reason why. Is because it might be the case that you don't have to talk and you can ignore and all of those other things. But forgiveness from God comes when you're able to forgive others. You have to feel it too. So we know that Jesus doesn't only talk about it, but he reflects it. He shows it to us. We see him with the woman at the well as he forgives those sins against her. We see him with the woman that had committed adultery, forgives all of those sins. We see him on a cross as he says, Father, forgive them, for they don't even know what they're doing. I mean, these are people that have sinned, that are the very reason that he's standing there dying is because of people like that have sin in their life and need a Savior. And he's saying, I know that they're sinning against me. I know that they have committed all this stuff, and that's the reason I'm here. But God, don't hold it against them, hold it against me. Because I don't even think sometimes they know what they're doing. How in the world can we get to that place in our lives where we treat people like that? Where we treat people in such a way that we really, really can just let it go. Peter, in this same scripture, Matthew chapter 18, real quickly, he tries to figure it out, and he says, okay, so what would be a good number of the times that I need to forgive? You know this, right? He comes up with this magic number 7. That's enough, isn't it, God? I mean, 7 times if they continue to repeat, if I continue to come in week after week after week after week, and I treat Kyle that same way, how many times does Kyle have to forgive me? Well, it's a lot more than 7, God says. Just keep multiplying it up. 70 times 7? That's a good number. 490 times? I think what Jesus is doing is being a little sarcastic here in the sense of saying there's not a number that you can put on forgiveness. Now, Kyle might need to stay clear of me. He might need to not do the same thing that he's always done. Don't put himself in a high-risk area and factor, because that would just not be smart. But on the other hand, we're not talking necessarily what's good for me. We're talking about what's good for Kyle, in the sense that if he does not forgive over and over and over and over again, then all that amounts is Kyle not only needing to forgive me 1 time, but he needs to forgive me 2 times, and then 3 times, and 4 times. And that builds up to the point in his own life where it's just overwhelming. It gets too much. I think that the glasses that we look through in life need to be one that looks and acts like Jesus. Let me just tell you, when he was on the cross and you say, hey, will you give me for the time that I did this? And he says, I forgive you. And I said, will you forgive me for the time that I did this? And what if he said, I'll forgive you for the first time, but the second time is on you? Your life would be over. Eternity, not even a hope anymore. Somehow, somewhere today, I just want to be like Jesus. Real quick, a couple things. You say that your hurts are too big to forgive. I understand that completely. But if your hurts are that big and that severe in your life, don't you think that it's time to remove them from your life? Don't you think it'd be easier to get around if you didn't have all that hurt on you? You say, time will heal it. Time will heal it. The hurts that I have, it'll just take me a little bit of time. It's funny about time because time will definitely heal things. And then it'll leave a scar. And then it seems like the first time that somebody mentions that thing in your life, or the first time it comes up, or that first time that person passes you, it's not just a scar anymore, it's a big open wound. And there it is again, it comes up. Some people say, I'll forgive when they come and they say that they're sorry to me. You know? When they're big enough to come in and admit what they did to me, that's when I'm going to forgive them. Let me just tell you, they're not coming. They don't think about it anymore. They don't care about it anymore. They're not coming. You think about it all the time. They should. They're not coming. And this isn't about them, it's about you. Let them get their own forgiveness for God. But this is about you. It's not about them coming and making it right. It's about you making it right. You're the only one that's accountable for your life unto God. And so you can wait and you can wait and you can wait, but they're not coming today. So it's your responsibility. If I forgive them, they'll just do it again. They'll just do it again, and they're going to do it again. And so I'm just not going to forgive. Now, I know that there's situations that are really, really hard to deal with, and I understand that there are certain things in life that are very hard to forgive. And you shouldn't put yourself in a place of high risk, like we were talking about with Kyle. He shouldn't put himself in a place over and over. So I'm not telling you that you go back into that situation over and over and let somebody abuse you or take advantage of you. But I am telling you that you can change what's going on, maybe physically in your life, so that you can try to get away from that. But you still have an obligation to forgive. I'm sorry. I know it hurts. And I know it's not fair. And I know it'll be the hardest thing that you will ever do in your life. But aren't you ready for it to be gone? You say, I can't forgive if I can't forget it. If I can't forget what happened to me, then I'll never, ever be able to forget. And here's the statement I have for you this morning. You'll never, ever, ever be able to forget until you forgive. Because it's right there. You hold it. Right in front of you all the time. Right? And you're not going to forget it if it's right there. But the moment you release it to God, and the moment that you say, God, no longer am I going to hold them responsible for the thing that they did to me. I release them. God, you can do what you want to with them. But as for me, I forgive. And then all of a sudden, here's what happens. There is hope and there is change that comes about. Because no longer is it in front of you. No longer do you have to deal with it anymore. No longer do you have to carry it around. It's forgiven. It's forgiven. And the minute you forgive, here's what God says to you. I forgive you of the same things. There was a man in this same chapter. He was a slave, and he owed his master a large amount. And the master came to him and he said, I think that I'm going to collect now. And the slave says, I can't repay you. It's years and years and years of wages, and I don't have that kind of money. He drops to his knees and he begs his master. He says, please forgive me of the debt that I owe you. Please. The master has mercy on him and he says, okay, I release you of all the debt. You owe me nothing. Oh, what a freedom. What a release. You know, no more do I have that hovering over me. He goes right out and he finds this man that owes him not years and years and years of wages, just 100 days of wages is what it amounts to. Quite a bit of money, it sounds like, but not near as much money as he owed his master. He says, I require of you this day what you owe me. I need it. And the guy says, I don't have it. Well, then I'm going to put you in jail for it. I'm going to lock you up. I'm going to make sure that you don't have this freedom about until you pay me back, till you give me the debt that you owe me. And that's what he does. Now, man, that don't even make sense. He just was released. This guy, if anything else, he should know what forgiveness feels like, because he just got this major debt released from him. And he goes right back out in return and doesn't do it to the one that owes him. The master finds out about it. What happens? He brings him back in and he calls him wicked. I want you to think about that word for a second. He says, you wicked. Wicked's not a great word. It makes you feel bad. It's like, well, you wouldn't call me that. I mean, that means I'm bad. You wicked servant. That I would forgive hundreds of years of wages for you. And the very first thing you would do is you would go out and find somebody else that owed you a small amount, and you would imprison them. Today, I take you, and you will live a life of torture, the master says, because of your decision. Because you were not willing to forgive the one that owed you, the one that was indebted to you, because you would not release that. Because you wouldn't just let them walk away, then I am going to hold you accountable. And you'll live a life of torture. The Lord compares that to our lives today. And as we leave, I want you to realize that forgiveness is so large that He's telling us today that if you are not willing to get along, if you're not willing to forgive, He's not going to forgive you. I've prayed the prayer, I've asked, I don't know, figure it out for yourself. That's what I'm preaching this morning. That's how I read it. If you don't agree with that, then figure it out on your own. We're all headed in the same place, right? Heaven? But I hope you get there if you're not one that's not forgiven. At the beginning of the message, we talked about hope. We talked about change that needed to take place. We talked about the word forgiveness. We talked about an image that came to your mind of whoever that is. You just draw it out, that face, skinny, chubby, short, tall, I don't know. And I'm wondering today, when I ask you this question, if you're willing, are you willing to forgive them today? let me just tell you, and I'm a little hesitant to say this, but I'm going to. If in your mind you say, I don't think I am, then I think your salvation's in jeopardy. I do. I think it is. I think your life is in real jeopardy today. Because the attitude that you have towards those people or that person, I sure hope it's not the same attitude that God has for you. You know? I hope it's not what God has chosen for you. Because if it is, we're in trouble. If you forgive, I'll forgive. If you'll forgive, I'll forgive. It continues to say it. If you'll forgive, I'll forgive. He's willing to forgive you. You need forgiveness today because you need salvation in your life and you need eternal life because you do not want to live a life in eternity that looks anything different than that's with Him, you know? So here's the question. Are you willing to forgive Him? How long have you lived? How long have you been with this in your life? I don't know about you, but today's a great day. Today's a great day. Here's what happens when you're willing just to say it. I'm going to forgive them. All of a sudden, just a release. Just a release comes all over you. And all of a sudden, God sweeps in and says, you know how it feels now. The reason that I forgave you is because I cared. The reason I forgave you is because I loved you. The reason that I forgave is because I wanted the best for you. And you know how that feels for people now. So take it. It's yours. It's yours to have. Just make sure you use it for other people as well. Here's what I want you to do. Because we got to go. I want you to pray with me. And as we pray, I want you out loud, a whisper, in your mind, I don't care. I just want you to start naming off the people that you need to ask to either forgive you or that you need to forgive. I forgive you, and say their name. I forgive you, and say their name. I forgive you, and say... And then the next step in that is to go to that person. Remember the conflict resolution? It's to go to that person and start that process. Oh, that's a lot of trouble. Yeah, it is. It's uncomfortable. It's a lot of trouble. I mean, that's what it is. But that's what we're supposed to do. That's it. That's what we're supposed to do. God expects it of you much more than I do. God expects it of you today. And that's how you're going to be whole.